In July of 1969, the world watched with bated breath as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped onto the surface of the moon, becoming the first humans to ever walk on another world. It was a moment that etched itself into history books and the collective memory of humanity. The United States, through NASA's Apollo program, had achieved what seemed like an impossible feat, landing humans on the moon. The Apollo missions were a remarkable testament to human ingenuity, perseverance, and ambition. Yet, despite these monumental successes, no human has returned to the moon since Apollo 17 in 1972. So, what happened? Why hasn't the US returned to the moon in more than 5 decades? The story begins in the early 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, when space exploration became a critical arena for global dominance. The Soviet Union had made significant strides in space, most notably with the launch of Sputnik in 1957 and the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin, in 1961. This ignited the space race, a fierce competition between the US and the Soviet Union to demonstrate technological superiority. President John F. Kennedy famously declared in 1961 that the US would land a man on the moon and return him safely to Earth before the decade's end. This wasn't just a scientific challenge, it was a geopolitical imperative. Kennedy's vision sparked the Apollo program, which ultimately cost an estimated $25.4 billion, or over $150 billion in today's dollars. Thousands of workers, engineers, and scientists across the nation came together to build the Saturn V rocket, the Lunar module, and everything needed for human space exploration. By 1969, Apollo 11 had made history, and the following missions cemented the US's dominance in space exploration. By the time Apollo 17 returned to Earth in 1972, 12 astronauts had walked on the lunar surface, conducted experiments, and brought back valuable samples that would help shape our understanding of the moon for years to come. But after Apollo 17, things began to change. Public interest in the moon missions started to decline. The United States was in the throes of the Vietnam War, economic struggles, and social upheaval. The moon, once a symbol of human achievement and national pride, seemed distant and irrelevant compared to the pressing issues on Earth. The government began to scale back its spending on space exploration, and NASA turned its attention to new projects. One of the most significant of these was the Space Shuttle program, designed to revolutionize space travel by offering reusable spacecraft for low Earth orbit missions. The shuttle would be able to carry astronauts to and from space, but it wasn't capable of reaching the moon. The legacy of the Apollo program lingered in the background, but it became clear that the US was no longer prioritizing lunar exploration. The Saturn V rocket, which had made the Apollo missions possible, was retired after Apollo 17. The shuttle, despite being an engineering marvel, was not built for deep space missions. To get humans back to the moon, NASA would need to design new spacecraft and technologies. But the focus had shifted away from the moon, and without a clear and compelling reason, the US simply didn't return. Decades passed, and the idea of returning to the moon faded further into the background. The political climate shifted, with space exploration taking a backseat to other national priorities. The fall of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s removed much of the geopolitical pressure, and the focus of space exploration turned to other destinations. Mars became a more alluring target, and robotic probes explored the farthest reaches of the solar system. The idea of humans returning to the moon seemed, to many, like a relic of a bygone era. Yet, despite these setbacks, the moon never completely lost its allure. In the early 2000s, President George H.W. Bush outlined a vision to return to the moon by 2020, with the ultimate goal of using it as a stepping stone for missions to Mars. But the Constellation program, which was supposed to carry out this vision, faced numerous delays and budget overruns. The Space Shuttle program was also winding down, and without a concrete plan or sufficient funding, the US was left without a way to get astronauts back to the moon. The true turning point came in 2017 with the launch of NASA's Artemis program. Artemis was a bold new initiative aimed at returning humans to the moon by 2024, with the goal of establishing a sustainable human presence on the lunar surface by the end of the decade. This time, the mission wasn't just about putting humans on the moon, it was about creating a permanent infrastructure for lunar exploration. The moon would become a stepping stone for deeper space exploration, including future missions to Mars and beyond. Artemis is not just a NASA mission, it's a global endeavor. The program includes international partnerships with the European Space Agency, Japan, Canada, and more. In 2022, NASA successfully launched Artemis I, an uncrewed test flight of the Space Launch System, SLS, rocket and Orion spacecraft, marking a significant milestone in the path back to the Moon. Artemis 2, scheduled for 2024, will carry astronauts on a flyby mission around the Moon, laying the groundwork for Artemis 3, which aims to land the first woman and the next man on the lunar surface by 2025. One of the most significant changes between the Apollo missions and Artemis is the involvement of private companies. SpaceX, led by Elon Musk, has been selected to provide the lunar lander for Artemis 3, using its powerful Starship vehicle. SpaceX's Starship, designed to be fully reusable, offers a more cost-effective and sustainable way to get astronauts to the Moon. Private companies like Blue Origin, led by Jeff Bezos, are also collaborating with NASA to push the boundaries of lunar exploration. The goal of Artemis is not only to return humans to the Moon but to stay there. NASA is planning to establish the Lunar Gateway, a space station that will orbit the Moon and serve as a staging point for future missions. The Gateway will provide living quarters for astronauts, laboratories for scientific research, and a platform for future deep space exploration. This international collaboration will also pave the way for a long-term presence on the Moon, enabling humanity to learn how to live and work on another world. Beyond the Gateway, the discovery of water ice in the Moon's polar regions has opened new doors for lunar exploration. Water is a crucial resource for life and could be used to produce oxygen and hydrogen for fuel, making it possible to live and work on the Moon without relying on supplies from Earth. This could make lunar exploration more sustainable and self-sufficient, providing the foundation for future exploration missions to Mars and beyond. In addition to these advancements, NASA's Lunar Surface Innovation Initiative is focusing on developing new technologies to support long-term lunar exploration. From energy storage and autonomous construction to advanced habitats that can survive the harsh lunar environment, these innovations will be critical for establishing a permanent human presence on the Moon. All these efforts are part of a broader vision. The Moon is seen as a testing ground for the technologies and systems that will be needed to send humans to Mars and eventually establish a human presence on other planets. By returning to the Moon, NASA and its partners hope to learn the lessons necessary to tackle the even more ambitious goal of sending humans to Mars. The US may have stepped away from the Moon for a while, but now, with Artemis and a new era of collaboration with private industry and international partners, humanity is poised to return. If all goes according to plan, astronauts will once again set foot on the lunar surface in the next few years, bringing the Moon back into focus as a key destination for human exploration. And who knows? This time, the Moon might be just the beginning of humanity's journey to the stars. The new chapter of lunar exploration is just beginning, and it promises to be a thrilling ride into the future. As we stand on the brink of a new era in space exploration, it's clear that the US has not simply been absent from the Moon because of a lack of interest or capability. The journey back has been shaped by a complex web of historical, political, financial, and technological factors. While the Apollo missions were driven by the fierce competition of the Cold War, the shift in priorities over the decades reflected broader societal changes, economic realities, and evolving goals in space exploration. But now, the landscape has changed. With the Artemis program, NASA is leading a new charge, not just to return humans to the Moon, but to establish a sustainable presence there. The technological advancements, international collaborations, and private sector partnerships that are part of this new approach are setting the stage for a future where the Moon is a gateway to further exploration, including missions to Mars and beyond. The challenges remain significant, but so do the opportunities. The lessons learned from the Moon will be invaluable as humanity looks to push the boundaries of space exploration even further. The Moon, once seen as a distant goal, is now a stepping stone in a much grander vision, a vision where humanity takes its next giant leap not just into the solar system, but into the cosmos. The future is bright, and with the Artemis program, we're on the cusp of a new chapter in our journey to the stars. In the end, the question isn't just why haven't we returned to the Moon? But rather, what's next? And the answer is nothing short of extraordinary. The Moon is only the beginning.